Hey guys, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Whether you're watching this in the morning, the afternoon, or in the evening, I'm stoked you're here. Real quickly, just want to say thank you to the channel members. Thank you. And thank you to anyone stopping in to take a look at the knife and EDC content that I put out. I appreciate it. I'm humbled by you being here. And if you're so inclined and you have the time, if you hit that subscribe button and that bell notification icon down there, really helped me out. Today I wanted to kind of do an overview, review, kind of my thoughts on 10 classic USA made folding knives. These are knives from my collection that I consider classic, so it's very subjective. And they're knives that aren't new. They're knives that don't get necessarily a lot of buzz anymore unless they're coming out in a new steel or something like that. But they're just all really good pocket knives, and I could get by with any of them probably as a sole pocket knife. Starting out with the Sig K320 here. This is a USA made knife by Hogue. This is the first generation when they came out with a polymer FRN type handle that's got a little of that grippy feel because Sig is a grip company, but it has amazing ergos. It's also available in a drop point. This one is the Tonto, which I picked up. It's 20 CV. It was around, when I got it, I want to say $125. They've since upgraded this model with upgraded steel, upgraded handle material. I look at it as just a fantastic all-around EDC knife. It's light, it's ergonomical. It's big enough to where it actually feels like you're holding something in your hand, but not overly heavy. And I think that's due in part to the grip feel of it. The bar lock / axis lock works great, and it's got hole deployment. So for me, this isn't always going to be a classic. Keep it in my collection for that reason, and it's a Sig K320. So as we move on, we come to one that is an absolute classic that you can find. They're not readily available at Blade HQ or Knife Center or places like that, but you can find them at Emerson's website or at some of their authorized dealers. This is the Emerson A100 Mini or Mini A100. And this, guys, is, to me, the most, if I was a 4-year-old kid and somebody said, draw me a knife, this is the knife I would probably come up with. It's very basic, but it's very to the point and very purpose driven. It's a hard use, thick spined, super thin, Scandi grind with a chisel on one side and a regular bevel on the other. Cuts very well, but yet it's very hardy, so it's what I would consider a work knife. They also have an A100 that's the full-size version of this knife, which is a good bit bigger. But for me, the Mini A100 is kind of perfect, and it is definitely a classic that'll always be in my collection. And I should really have said timeless classics of these knives that we're talking about. I think they'll always kind of be a classic knife. The next one, and this was definitely a classic in my collection, the Benchmade 940 and 945. Of course, the 945 wouldn't have come along had it not been for the 940, which I instantly fell in love with when I saw it. It was a knife that when I got early into the knife game, it was just one that I always said one day I'd love to have a Benchmade 940 with the aluminum green handles, the OG, so to speak. And that day came. I got it from Knife Works probably about 2.5 years ago. And a lot of people complain about this knife not being much of a cutter, and it's not much of a slicer. But that's not what it was designed for, in my opinion, by a ranch hand who uses knives for digging, poking, prodding, cleaning out horse hooves. I love this knife. I think it's kind of a get-it-done EDC knife. It's kind of perfect for all the things that I'm going to do EDC-wise. Again, I'm rarely going to be doing super thin therapeutic paper cutting, even though I really enjoy that. Most of the time, I'm going to be getting into a package, cutting through a mess of duct tape, cutting through some paracord, you name it. And the Benchmade 940, I think for that reason, will always be kind of a tried and true classic from Benchmade. And it's just a great knife. And the 945 is its little brother, little cousin, also a fantastic knife. I think that brings us to 1098, coming up to number 7, and yet another Benchmade. And what I think will always be a classic knife. I think it imitated knives before it ever came out, because I was about to say a knife that's imitated by more than any other knife, which a lot of people that are in the knife game will think, yes, this knife's been copied more than any other or inspired more than any other. And that could be true. I also know it's basically a knife, right? It's kind of like that old adage of it's a blade, a handle, with, of course, the axis lock, which is the Benchmade thing. So we've got the mini Benchmade Bugout and the regular Bugout. The full-size Bugout is a perfect EDC knife. It's thin. It comes with FRN scales. You can get it with aluminum scales, titanium scales. You can buy it with a lot of aftermarket scales like I did with this one. This was a Blade HQ G10 version that has 20 CV 20 CV steel, and I put some really nice meat emboss or met emboss scales on it because I like this knife. I carry this knife a good bit. I've never had, knock on wood, any axis locks go bad on me. I've never broken a spring, and I've got a lot of them. And this is my mini, which was just a little white $115 when I bought it version. And then I got some really cool scales from Sharp Dressed Knives, I think. Or I think it was Sharp Dressed Knives. I don't want to throw the scales under the bus because they are really impressive. Micarta Mexican blanket. But yeah, the Bugout and the mini Bugout are just a classic, get it done, EDC knife, USA made. I'm always a fan. I don't collect them, but I do appreciate them. So moving on, that brings us to kind of a newer classic in my opinion. It's not one that I carry all the time, but I do carry it quite a bit. And I do think it has earned its rank among USA made classics. And this is the Tactile Turn Rockwall. Mine's the OG Rockwall, or third generation. It doesn't have Zerk studs, doesn't have any fancy studs. Magna cut, fantastic action, nice milled scales, titanium scales. Again, just a delightful little get it done gentleman's folder that's made in the USA. It has what I would consider more boutique action, that it's very, very smooth. The liner lock engages extremely well. It's just a great little knife. You can get in there and reverse finger flick it, which I just slow reverse finger flicked it. How I did that, I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to it. It's a little harder under camera, but you can reverse finger flick it, but you can thumb flick it with ease. So since I'm got a light to one side and the camera to the other, we will thumb flick it and say that this is definitely, I would say, a classic, a new classic. A couple of years in the market now, maybe 3. I think it'll be here for a long time. I think the Rockwall is kind of the standard from which Tactile Knife Company kind of sprung into existence from. So moving on, we come to a classic that no one can argue is a classic. Probably could be number 1 in this list, but I kind of did it based on my favorites. But this is the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. This is a knife that I like so much that I actually have 3. I have the Tanto and S30V. I'm not a steel collector, but I do have the regular, which was the first Spyderco I got, in S110. And then I've got my Warncliffe is in CTS XHP. CTS XHP. Say that fast. But whichever one you're talking about, the Spyderco Para 2 for me is a perfect EDC knife. I'm a little guy. It's not too big. John, what about the Para 3? A lot of people love the Para 3. For me, it does not fit my hand. Something feels awkward about it. Maybe it's because I had the Para 2 for so long before I actually picked up a Para 3 that I let it go on. I kind of caught and released it, and I've since picked up 2 more Para 2s. It is a larger knife. It is one of the larger knives in my EDC that I will carry on the daily, but it carries so agilely and carries so well. You'll notice I've got deep carry clips on mine because I don't like the standard clips, but just a really, really great knife. You can get it in a lot of different blade steels. They have it in a lightweight version. They have it in, you know, as many versions as you can shake a stick at. But the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 is definitely a classic, definitely one of my top 10 classics of USA folders, which brings us to the TRM Neutron. This could just as easily be the TRM Atom. This could just as easily be the TRM Nerd or the TRM Shadow. The reason I went with the Neutron is I wanted to go with kind of a lower middle entry price point of a TRM knife that is just an absolute slicing, cutting, deep concealed, carrying. You don't even feel it. With this, got G10 scales on it now. It usually wears titanium, but I wanted to show it with some G10 scales because it's so light, it's so agile. I think you can pick these up. Don't quote me, but go check out TRM's website and see what the Neutrons go for at drop. They usually come with a micarta or with the G10 handle that you can choose from, and then you can also get titanium, which I did. Actually, they'll be going back on after this video. But this is the TRM Neutron. It is an absolute classic. It is an absolute favorite of mine from my favorite USA made company. I love TRM as a company, what they do, what they stand for, how they interact with the community, how they interact with their customers. I'm not saying that anybody else doesn't do that well. I'm just saying, in my humble opinion, nobody does it like TRM. So, loving the Neutron, wanted to put it in the top 10 classic list, and we will move on. Coming to, we can call it the Benchmade Bugout. I like that Benchmade Bugout, but I like to think of it as the Doug Ritter Hogue RK1. Now, I love my Pardue Bugout or Griptilian mini grip. So this was the first one I had. This will be one that stays in my collection. It's a classic. But you're talking about classic knives. This is, and the Griptilian was part of Doug Ritter's brainchild. And when Doug Ritter and Benchmade separated, went their own ways, Hogue picked up Doug's design and they started working together, and I think the knife only got better. This is the RK1, if I'm not mistaken, and I guess the RK Mini. I'll call it the Ritter Hogue full size and the Ritter Hogue Mini. These knives are available at KnifeWorks exclusively. So if you go to knifeworks.com or you go to Google and you put in Ritter Hogue, R-I-T-T-E-R H-O-G-U-E, this is what you'll get. It's the I want to say MK. My brain's going crazy, so I don't even want to start throwing out numbers right now. But made in the USA, fantastically scalloped G10 scales, 20 CV blade, standard. You can get it in Magna Cut now. These are older knives. Nice stonewash on the blade, super sharp. What I consider a beefed up version of the Axis lock, the Hogue version. I love the thumb studs. They have more grip in my opinion. And the Hogue RSK1 or MK1, the Ritter Hogue, Griptilian, if you want to call it that. MC always talks about it being Griptilian size, but he uses the Ritter Hogue, and you can see in the Mini, because I don't have a full-size grip, that there are more similarities than differences. I can tell you the differences have been improvements, but coming in top 10 classic, can't leave home without it. A Doug Ritter Hogue knife. Proceeds go to support Doug so he can support us through knife rights. I think it's a great knife. I think there's a great cause behind it, and I urge you to check them out at KnifeWorks. I have no affiliation with KnifeWorks or with Knife Rights, except I believe in what they do, and I'm a supporter. Check these guys out. Great knives, won't serve you wrong. Made in America, by Hogue, designed by Doug. They're winners. Moving on, we come to our second knife, number 2, classic, all-time in my book, the Spyderco Manix. It is that much higher, in my opinion, than the Para 2, because maybe where the Para 3 made me feel like I was needing something and the Shaman felt a little big, the Manix 2, for me, personally, it is perfect. I love it. I love the way this knife has been modded by me. I ordered some what are the scales? Rock Scale Designs creature pattern scales that are linerless, so I was able to get rid of the jimped liners that the Manix has that a lot of people love. No hate here. I'm just more of a urban city dweller guy, so I love just having the jimping here in my choil and the jimping here on the spine of my blade and having a smooth handle. It carries in my pocket like a dream. It's got an MX gear, a deep carry clip. It is again, I love it. This is my number 2 classic. I think it'd make anybody a classic. I can recommend it to anybody. This one happens to be, of course, Golden, Colorado, USA Earth, but this is the crew wear edition. But the Manix is another knife that you can get in both a lightweight or in the G10. Plenty of different mod options and plenty of blade steel choices. Which takes us to our number 1 classic. In my opinion, can't beat it. People will fight me on it. I know you will. It is the Protech Malibu. But what about the Mordax, John? What about the Mordax? The Mordax is fan-freaking-tastic. What turned you on, if you had been turned on, to Protech? Did you go Mordax first, or did you learn about it through the Malibu? I love the Mordax. I have both. For me, the balance and the size of this reverse Tanto Protech Malibu is perfect. I love the Mordax. I'm not taking anything away from it. I don't have the Wharncliffe version of the Malibu, but this knife, for me, detent, flipper only, which is something I don't really enjoy anymore. However, I carry this knife several times a month. It's got snap, whether you light switch it, whether you middle finger switch it. It locks up like a tank, and I told y'all I wasn't going to do spine wax anymore, but cuts like a dream. It is a little thick behind the edge, but that's part of its appeal to me. CPM 20CV, Protech up here on the spine. It is the textured aluminum handle, and it's just a freaking banger. Love that knife, love that knife, love that knife. So guys, we've got a lot of knives that were in this video that I think would make anybody a classic USA made folder that you're not going to go wrong with, not going to steer you wrong. And if it does, all of these have fantastic warranties. They're USA companies, so they're people that you can reach out to and say, hey, my knife's fucked up. Can you help me out? And they'll help you out. So that's another advantage of what I think of as a USA made banger. And these guys, like I said, are USA made bangers. They don't get enough time in my pocket because I carry so many different things, and that's a good problem to have. It's a blessing. I know that. And I just want to share it with you guys. And it's just my thoughts, right? So I'm sure I've left out knives that you probably say, hey, John, this to me is a much better knife than that. And leave me a comment. I'd love to learn about it. I probably just looked it over. Again, guys, I just went through my current collection and thought of 10 classics that I want to share with you guys. I appreciate you watching. If you've made it this long, God bless you. I apologize for speaking so long. I love each and every one of you. If you would, please look out for the guy or gal to your left. Don't forget the guy or gal to your right. Look out for each other. Go forward with love in your heart. Choose debate, not hate. I love y'all. Peace.